This meeting is being recorded.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's Knowledge Bank. Thank you for joining us today. Today's webinar is being presented by ParkSimple, who are going to be speaking to you about private parking management. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please submit them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we will try to get through as many as possible at the end. The webinar is also being recorded today, so it will be available to watch back via the News on the Block YouTube channel. That is all from me, and I'm now going to hand you over to Rob.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all well, and thank you for joining me this afternoon for a little introduction to parking management and the private parking sector. Really appreciate your time, and I'll try to keep this to about half an hour to keep your attention and to tell you everything about what I know, what we do, and my new business, ParkSimple. So now everyone's here, we can begin. And just a short introduction in regards to what we will be looking to cover today. They've got the professional and personal overview, so you know who you're dealing with, a little bit about me and my personal and professional background. My company introduction, you probably haven't heard of ParkSimple before, or my company for good reason, so I'll go into a little bit about my company. What to look for when choosing your parking management provider. You may be considering some aspects of that already, but certainly, hopefully, I can broaden your horizons in that regard and what to look out for when choosing your parking operator. 5 things to be effective in parking management, with our 7 core principles of business to follow. A little bit about my virtual e-permit systems and cashless parking. A couple of case studies since I've been operating where there's a problem, a solution, and a result. And then finally, an update on the private parking code of practice, just for your knowledge and understanding of where we are with that aspect and the government. And then just a summary and any questions that you may have at the very end. So who am I? My name is Robert Gilder. I'm the owner and founder of ParkSimple. Just a little bit of background about myself. I started from school, I left and I went to become a youth trainee at Watford Football Club. That was when they first got promoted to the Premier League in the late 1990s. Unfortunately, that didn't quite work out for me to become a professional footballer. But because I was sporty and in that environment, I became a personal trainer. That was all okay for a couple of years and going well. And then I found myself going into the private parking sector. That was circa 2006. It was a job initially. It soon became a career. And now it's become my own parking management business. So I personally have had 2 decades of working in the private parking sector. I've worked in both the residential and the commercial scene with 2 different parking operators over nearly 20 years in the sector. I specialise in the management of residential developments in particular. The company I worked previously for was a specialist in residential parking management, so I have extensive knowledge in the residential sector primarily. But I did work for a commercial operator for a couple of years, so I do have some commercial acumen to back that up as well. I've worked with some of the largest and recognised developers, managing agents, housing associations right throughout the UK on all types of schemes, mixed use, complex, new build developments and the like. The main key facets of where I believe is right to work with clients is that I enjoy my networking, building rapport and relationships, and helping to cultivate long-term partnerships and relationships with my clientele, some of which I have worked with extensively for more than a decade in the private parking industry and providing parking services and solutions. I always try to deliver what I say and what I do, and I never overpromise and fail in that regard. A lot of people, a lot of businesses do tend to promise the world, but not fail to meet those expectations. So it's a key interest of mine and my business to make sure I work with honesty, integrity, and transparency at all times. Those little icons on the right there, you can see me and my wife holding 2 children's hands. They're not actually our children; those are our grandchildren. We've got Chester, who's just 1.5 now, and Logan, who's 6. And the 3 to your right are my children, 3 girls. Courtney, Abigail and Sienna, 24, 20 and 14. And the dog, Dachshund, called Arlo, he's part of our family now from the COVID era. Didn't ever want a dog, but ended up having one anyway and wouldn't change him for the world. I enjoy running to keep fit. I support Manchester United. I have thrown that in there, so please don't hold that against me. And I like watching documentaries, real life documentaries and events, and all sporting events. So actually, with the Euros on and Royal Ascot this week, I've done very well to actually turn up for my own presentation today. So I also thank you for your time in that regard. So about ParkSimple, some of these typical parking issues you'll be very familiar with. That obviously it takes up far too much of your time. It becomes very emotive and challenging how to deal with parking problems on your estates. Many parking restrictions tend to be a little confusing, and it's hard to explain to your residents how and where they should be parking, with obviously confusing terms of parking on your properties. Poor long-term planning, not from yourselves, but mainly the parking operators, in respect of they're looking for short-term wins and don't look at the longer-term aspects of the site, the development and the parking services. You end up maybe using different contractors for your parking services. So not just someone who provides the enforcement aspect, but you may be looking for a line marking contractor or a abandoned vehicle removal operator. And they're not easy to come by or find. And that takes up, as alluded to at the top there, too much of your time. I do believe that a parking operator should be able to provide all of the parking related services on your schemes. A lot of bad parking behaviours become or left unchecked simply because of lack of patrols and enforcement. And there's a distinct lack of education to our clientele, not informing them about the parking industry, about legislation, so you have a better understanding of how the systems and legislation all works. So with that all in mind, what can we deliver? We look for great results with less enforcement. I'll come along to my business model and how that all works with ParkSimple very shortly. We provide simple and effective solutions, hence my name. It is parking, but we want it to be simple and effective. We want to have results-driven solutions for your customers and clients. We give you choice and flexibility with a customer-first angle. So it's always your customers that we look to engage with and look to have an ongoing relationship with, to make sure that they are fully engaged with what the parking systems are and how we look to get consistent and proven services to drive good results. Looking to gain trust and obviously building those important relationships as we go along as well. There's 4 key aspects of my vision, focus, what our difference is and our ethos. So we've got a very simple vision to be effective, flexible and provide convenient parking solutions to the private sector. We're looking to be proactive with our approach to parking, which a lot of operators aren't, so you get ongoing engagement, and make sure the solutions are there for your residents, for their visitors, for your customers and visitors alike, to make sure that they are driven by them to have effective solutions that they find to be effective, flexible and convenient when it comes to their parking. In regards to focus, we're looking for the right solutions always, putting your customers first. Far too many times do I see operators, having done that side of things as well myself, in working in this industry for so long, is that solutions aren't right for our clients. They're not bespoke, they're not tailored, and they're very much driven by the operator, as opposed to working with that flexibility with your clients, with your customers, and making sure that the right solutions are provided at all times. Our difference. So what is our difference in regards to our competitors? Well, we very much provide services in a very different way, and all without a conflict of interest. The main aspect here with the conflict is that actually every operator that provides a free service is actually a conflict within themselves. So where they provide a permit-based system, for example, they actually want that service and system to fail, because if it fails, it's then your residents and visitors that primarily fall foul of that enforcement action to be able to drive a revenue for that company and that business, because that is their only derision of parking charge income and to be a viable business. So they don't have a long-term interest in making sure the services and systems they provide are fruitful for your customers to make sure they can park well, because it's a conflict for them that if they do their job too well, they don't make any money. So our difference is providing great service, great solutions, without the actual enforcement element. And I'll come along to that very shortly. Very simply, our ethos, most businesses I work with have the same, to work with professionalism, honesty, integrity. I believe in that personally, to be professional, to be honest, and have that integrity within myself, and my company follows through with that ethos as well. So we've got a key vision, a core focus, we have a point of difference, and we have a strong working ethos as well. So the paid versus free model. So this is where I am coming from a very, very different angle to pretty much every parking competitor, certainly in the residential sector. So what does free give you? Well, free doesn't give you a choice. Free gives you the operator making their money through enforcement actions and by issuing parking charge notices. As mentioned, it's a massive conflict of interest with actually providing a service that service, if it is effective, isn't viable for that parking operator. So if those services and solutions aren't in the best interest of the resident, the customer, the visitor, then they've got the opportunity to issue parking tickets. It's designed for that very much use of the parking operator with no long-term vision and long-term service in mind. Many, many times, and I'm sure you've experienced this yourselves, in regards to 6-12 months, everything's going well. After that period, the service lacks because there's a high delinquency, low payment rate on your schemes, or there's not enough tickets being issued to remain viable to the operator. Therefore, that lack of service comes in and no long-term interest in the scheme, and you end up wasting your time looking for another operator that will do the same thing for that next 12 months. With ParkSimple, you have a long-term interest and a vested investment into the parking schemes that we provide. As said there, so we're investing into customer service. My systems and solutions are all designed for your customers. They're not for the operator because, as I said, we don't do the enforcement aspect. We don't derive our revenue from enforcement action being taken. It is purely through the customer service solution. If you think of your cleaning or your landscaping contractors, they're providing a valuable service. And if it's a free service they're providing, they wouldn't do their job half as well. And much like ourselves, not providing that enforcement, I don't have a conflict of interest. I can provide the tailored solutions that we have on offer at a very low cost, giving you and your customers that flexibility and choice, and hopefully building lasting relationships to work with you over a long period of time with a long-term strategy in place to manage your parking, not just short-term, but over a long period. So please ask yourself, and I'm sure you're doing this already, but these values and taking these things into consideration, just keep things fresh for you and make sure you are making a considered decision when you're employing your parking contractors. So who are the company? Make sure they have a sound standing in the industry. Make sure the people that are working with, what they stand for is very important. As I said, my vision, my focus, the point of difference and our ethos. It's very clear who we are and what we do, and then why we do it and how we deliver to gain results. What about their people? Yes, my company's fresh, it's new, it's 6 months old, but I have that knowledge, I have that experience, nearly 20 years worth in the private parking sector, and both sides as well, residential and obviously commercial. So I know about the service element, and I know how important that is to make sure that we're providing that to our clients in a sustainable way and a responsible way. And what is our industry knowledge? Making sure they know what they're talking about, making sure they can deliver on what they're saying they can deliver on, and that they are up to date with the parking legislation. So even though I don't have to be a member of the approved parking operator scheme with one of the 2 trade bodies, I am very au fait and keep up to date with the industry and the parking legislation, so I can give great advice and good explanation as regards to how you can do things on your private land to manage parking and what you can't do and what the in-between would be in that respect as well. So some simple things to look for when you obviously are dealing with your parking operators and a parking contractor. First and foremost, 6 things: solutions. Simple is always best. Coming back to my name again, for far too many times I've seen parking schemes that are overcomplicated, they're convoluted, and even me with that much experience in the industry, I get confused sometimes looking at signage, looking at literature from previous parking operators. And if I can't work it out, what chance has your resident? Improved customer parking for convenience and deliverable will make it clear. Has to be clear not only on the signage for those drivers and motorists that are parking on site, but make sure it's clear and deliverable to the resident. So we have a very clear outset here at ParkSimple in regards to how we do that for your residents, how we communicate. Because if we can communicate and educate, parking is so much easier, simpler, and better for those users. The solution has to be beneficial for the user, not the operator, as mentioned. It's too led by the operators at the moment in regards to what the parking systems and solutions are on your schemes. They're not tailored enough, they're not bespoke enough, and they are driven by the operator, not actually to the benefit of you and your residents to make sure that there's a long-term sustainable parking solution on your sites. Integrity, once again, going back to a clear vision of ours, what is their integrity as a business with the people you're working for within that business? Are they customer-centric and client-first? And are their services delivered effectively? That's not just in the short term, as I said, because that's easy to do, to provide that proposal, to implement the signage and the permit system per se, but how do they do that sustainably? And has their integrity to make sure that they exceed expectations and garner long-term strong working relationships in the long term to make sure you have that sustainable relationship. The management, how do they manage these sites for you? Are they effective? Are they quick in their support? Do they give you timely responses to email, verbal, written, to make sure you can actually speak to someone on the end of the phone, to make sure they're available for you? Too many times, bigger companies, in my opinion, I used to work for one, they get too centric on what they're working with now and forget about what they were dealing with or who they were dealing with. And if things don't go quite right for them, i.e. they are not issuing tickets or they do have a poor payment rate, do they still provide you the same service and manage that scheme and that system for you? So are they consistent in their approach and their deliverables, and make sure your users and yourself know who to contact in respect of email addresses, phone numbers, and points of contact within that business to make sure they can manage your sites at all times. Professionalism, very key for any business worth their salt in regards to the concerns that are addressed with a professional approach. There can be a way to write to people or explain things to people, both customers and clientele, but do they do that in the most professional manner? Are they providing their best-in-class options and services for you with honesty and transparency, with that good communication? All of this comes under the professionalism banner that I make sure that ParkSimple is at the forefront of all of these things to look for within your parking management operator. Learning, I don't know everything, even nearly 20 years on. I'm still learning from my peers, from those in the industry, going to seminars, going to peer groups, making sure, going to networking events, that I'm hearing from those in the know. I don't pretend to be an expert about everything parking, but I do believe I do have a strong working network to lean on those and learn from those to make sure I've got that excellent industry and knowledge that I can give that expert parking advice to my clients. And you have an understanding as a client. As I said previously, too much our clients don't know what's going on in the industry. So much so that even 12 years on, I still get questions about, can we remove vehicles from private land? That law was abolished 12 years ago, would you believe? Which is a long time ago now. There's only certain reasons why you can remove private vehicles from private land. And just because they're parking badly, sadly, because it's a civil case, you can't just do that anymore. So that learning aspect and that understanding from the clientele, so you can go back with more informed approach to your residents and have that knowledge and have that trust that what you're saying is correct. That is very important for the operator as well. And evolution. The parking market is changing very, very quickly indeed, with all the technology, all the information, the drive towards compliance, to make sure that we adapt to change, making sure that what they provide is part of the overall solution, not part of the problem. And are they adaptable, motivated, and flexible in their approach? So if you look at those 6 things there, solutions, integrity, management, professionalism, learning, and evolution, if you ask yourself, are your parking providers providing most, if not all of those aspects, then they're probably doing very well. It's something that is never asked enough from clientele in regards to parking services, yet it is probably the most emotive issue you will deal with on your parking schemes. And behind their property, their flat, their mortgage, their tenancy, their rent, the second biggest asset they have is their vehicle. And that company who is protecting their rights to park must have all of these things, in my professional opinion. Effective parking management. If we move on to customer focus, taking full consideration of every customer's needs and wants. Can they advise of that and be involved in that consultation process? It's not just for the operator to come to the client who has a parking problem and just say, this is how it should work, this is how it must work. Let's involve your customers to make sure that they're engaged and feel part of the decision-making process. That can only build trust and loyalty. I know all too well when I first started in the industry, certainly residential managing agents, I would put a proposal and a recommendation to a managing agent, and I would deal with the property manager, and you would literally get it signed off within days on their decision. Every single proposal I put in this year as a fledgling new business, and I've done previously over many years now, has to be gone through a resident RA, a directorship, a steering committee. So there's so much more engagement, especially with the fact of social media. You know, you can move into a new development today and within minutes you'll be on their Facebook page. And one of the biggest bugbears they put on there, amongst other things you have to deal with, I do appreciate, is about how and where people are parking, monopolisation of resident visitor bays, etc. So building that trust and loyalty for long-term partnerships with customers, not just our clients, is a key understanding to make sure that we deliver on those. We look to maximise revenues for you. So where at all possible, can we look at your schemes, your sites, your land, your spaces to see if there's a strategic opportunity to introduce new revenue streams? We're not just there to make money or service charge or provide an enforcement angle. We're there to manage your parking, but also look at ways we can actually acquire a fee for parking that could add value to the client's asset. Being flexible with those terms of engagement are key as well. So we're not just saying it must work like this, and these are the terms and conditions of this revenue generation system we have. Everything we do is tailored to your requirements, but if we can maximise revenue streams and introduce new revenue streams, it shows to your residents and you're putting back something into the estate that we can help drive forward for you. Virtual e-permits. Our virtual e-permit systems, and I do believe technology, even though I'm not very tech savvy, I do believe this is definitely the way forward within the private parking industry. If you go to many public car parks now, private or public, there's so many now in my locality that are just pay to park only, going back to the maximising revenues angle. No machines, low cost, low setup, low management. But what it does give you is give you a higher return. Likewise, our permit system's outdated. I used to swear by the permit system as an enforcement operator. The reason being is that mistakes happen. If you make a mistake, the operator has a chance to issue a ticket. That mistake is generally by your resident. They're funding the free service for everyone else, but they're the ones getting penalised. So the virtual permit systems can be tailored for any site to be the most effective. That means there's no requirement for a physical permit. There's no permit fees, replacement, additional permit, bay permits that they may need more of over a period of time. All will come at a cost. So we not only reduce mistakes, we actually do save residents and our clients money from that physical permit element. Also as well, it reduces carbon footprint and the printing element, which obviously is all very good for us as well. Parking compliance. It's not in the operator's responsibility to be that compliant, to be that good that they solve the parking issue. Most parking problems on residential estates primarily come from within. So unless you're close to amenities, train stations, shops, colleges, etc., that unauthorised element quickly disperses. A ticket on one or two of those vehicles, they will go and annoy someone else. What you then need to manage, and this is why it doesn't necessarily work with a free operator on a long-term basis, is that once you get parking compliance, that operator is less interested in making sure that that scheme is successful for you and those problems don't come back. Because perversely, if they let things drift for a while when people start to park badly, they can then hit your estate again and maximise their revenue opportunity by issuing a rake more tickets. Well, that's not good practice. And it doesn't necessarily drive long-term parking compliance. So we use data and industry knowledge to provide this best service to make sure that it's for the benefit of the users. It ensures good practice. And if you get the right systems, communication and solutions right, you invariably drive better parking and higher parking compliance, which ParkSimple very much advocates and is driven for. To be consistent and flexible. Service delivery management should be consistent. We said about the company and the operators you use. Is it consistent and flexible? Not just to you, but can they deliver that consistently and flexibly for your residents? I'm working on a couple of sites at the moment that are new build developments with various phases. The development plans at the beginning can very much well change as we go down time and we look at phase 2 and phase 3 of these sites. So can they still provide that consistent approach with that flexibility to make sure we can manage those expectations in a responsible way, which are obviously fundamental to the long-term success of the scheme? I do believe those five key points there for effective parking management are key. So if you look and understand those, are your operators providing some of those, if not all of those opportunities, and discussing with you these as they go along to make sure you're fully aware of what they can do. So onto ourselves, we've got 7 core key principles of our business. This guide is to help you understand the key benefits of working with ourselves and obviously the challenges you and your customers face on a daily basis. Whether you have parking problems or you have a private car park, whichever it is, the 7 core principles of our business will make sure that we give you long-term success. So first and foremost, before that even happens, we have to build successful relationships. We build and maintain those over a long period of time. We want to give our clients confidence and the trust in working with us with that consistent approach, and that you can trust in our management systems and services that we provide. Unlike a lot of companies, you are personal to us. Everything we do for you has a personal approach because we're invested in you and your customers to make sure we share the same vision, our ethos, and we obviously provide those deliverables in a sustainable way. Our commitment, long-term commitment to you with customer service. Because we've got this unique and fresh outlook to parking management, and we believe that to be the future, we make those investments into the service solutions we provide. Having that long-term vision does help with the parking project and gives you that commitment that you're going to need and want long-term. By cultivating these working relationships, we can give you and your customers those timely responses, deal with any customer queries regarding any parking related matters, and then look at how the scheme and how the site evolves moving forward to make sure that is sustained throughout the long-term contract. Our tailored parking solutions. Once again, the same sign, the same permit system on every site just doesn't work anymore because these sites are new predominantly, even the older ones with different types of parking rights, first come, first served, allocated parking, visitor parking, EV parking now, disabled bays. Are the solutions right for your schemes? It can't just be one term and condition if you've got 5 different parking bays. Has to be tailored every single time. And our unique approach and our unique systems can do exactly that. So not only to the scheme, but they can be individually tailored as well. So for example, if you had 50 properties and they all had different parking rights, I could do 50 different permit configurations for those residents, each with a separate parking right. Unlikely to happen, but you can see that obviously what we do and how our core principles align with those tailored solutions are customer focus, and that they're involved through that process to make sure we can provide what they want to see on their land and in their car park, not what the operator wants to see. Obviously, within those tailored solutions, are they adaptable and can changes be made that may arise from parking in the future, especially on new builds, which are large, complex, may have a commercial element, to make sure that we're fully engaged and we can tailor those solutions throughout. Do they manage all of your parking services? As I said, I've worked with many clients throughout many years who have used previously different parking, a parking operator, an abandoned vehicle removal company, line marking contractor, that they have to facilitate, which takes them far too much time. So with the management of all parking services, are they correct from the beginning? And can that company facilitate and manage all of those for you? We here at ParkSimple can. Whatever your parking matter is or whatever your parking inquiry is, even if I don't deal with that service directly, you can come to me and ParkSimple and we will facilitate that for you. And we implement and provide those on an ongoing management and advice basis, and we cover all areas as well. So that can be bays, that can be restricted areas, roadways, whatever it may be. It could be commercial, residential, industrial. We can provide the management of all parking services on any scheme, anywhere. As you're well aware now, we're not a parking enforcement operator. We're a provider and facilitator of parking services. You know, that gives us a unique approach and a unique stance within the private parking industry. Providing expert advice and solutions as required, and our commitment is to you and your customers to achieve that parking compliance. If there's great communication with good, flexible, convenient services tailored to that particular development, then the chances are you'll achieve a higher parking compliance, limiting mistakes and errors, less enforcement. Therefore, you're going to get less problems, less issues with that being a problem on your estates. We don't derive our revenues from parking charges, so there is a cost element to this, but I do believe this is the right way to go, and it does give people and our clients flexibility and choice because our vision and ethos is about best parking service with that less enforcement needed. We want to save you time. Being experts in the private parking sector means you don't have to be. You don't have to source parking problems or issues. Come to us, we can do all that for you. Gives you and your staff time back to manage your properties more effectively. With a single point of contact, you get that personal service and that personal approach as mentioned. And obviously providing the right service and solutions means we can reduce your parking problems without the need and less requirement for enforcement action, which takes up far too much of your time, and we can make sure that you become far more effective. And then finally, we look to make you money, as I said, looking at those intuitive ways to create a new revenue stream. We maximize your land space and and obviously any commercial opportunities. And surveying your sites for monetary value can help drive a revenue through the estate. There's been many sites I've worked on, especially large and complex, whereby the scheme and the services provided tailored to that site, but also we can generate that revenue through my ParkPay service, which I'll come along to shortly. And then providing that that revenue stream into residential property can give something back into the estate, which can help pay for new or additional services that you may well need later on down the line. So a little bit now about our virtual permit systems. We've got a resident e-permit, visitor e-voucher, or a combination, which I've called our e-combo. What does it give you? It gives you that convenient and flexible and simple to use approach. It's easy to apply for and sign up for an account. You'll see the QR code there. If anyone did want to scan on the screen that QR code, then please do so. That will give you a direct passage to the registration page, whereby you can do a test account. The test account location number for your information is 123. So if you do that after this or during this, I will be able to look at the application, approve, and then you'll be able to use the back end to see how simple and easy it is to add, change, and amend your vehicle registrations at any time. Once again, it's compliance driven and it's for the user, and you can manage this anytime, anywhere. The key benefits of such is that obviously it's tailored for that approach. You've got a single and multiple maximum vehicle provisions, as I said, tailored to every individual property if needed, or that individual site. No requirement for physical permits, meaning there's no additional permit fees or costs or dealing with the operator, fully self-managed. Low cost gives you maximum value by reducing mistakes that lead to enforcement action. And obviously you've got your own online account portal, client reporting aspects as well. And there's an automatic renewal, so you don't necessarily have to sign up each year. Once again, it's fully adaptable to virtual e-permit service, both for the e-permit and the e-voucher or the combination. So if you did want a renewal or a charge or it to be free, once again, in the back office, because I can configure the permit situation to any site for any means, that is very much doable as well. So there's lots of key benefits to using virtual permits. Cashless parking, you've probably used Ringo before or Just Park, etc. I've labelled mine ParkPay similar. However, a key point of difference here is it's once again, it's online, so it's not app-based. I don't know whether you're aware about the national parking platform, and local authorities are using multiple vendors now in respect of giving their customers more choice. Because if you went, and I was very recently in Reading, and all I had was a choice of Ringo, it didn't work. I couldn't get hold of anyone. There was no number to call. It caused a great frustration, a big delay for a meeting I was going to, because the parking machine wasn't working. And as mentioned previously, going to these car parks now, it is cashless parking only. So with that being said, my system is online, therefore can be managed at any time, anywhere, without using apps or making a mistake by using an app. So it can maximize your profits and revenue streams on any type of site, and it can obviously be used for visitor parking in a very different way. Certainly on your large, complex commercial elements and retail, whereby instead of just visitor parking, it's sort of used for public parking, and the ParkPay Go works really well with that. This can be set up very quickly with no cost to you and no management fees, and it can be changed at a touch of a button as well. And it's a live situation. So with other operators, if you ask for a change of tariff or a new scheme, it can take some time to obviously get through to the back office. With my system and how it works, there are no delays. If you gave me a change of tariff or a time period now, that could be done by the end of the day, and it would be live instantaneously. So it's easy to use. It can be white labeled as well. So if you wanted, instead of my logo and my branding on that homepage, if you wanted it tailored to your particular requirements with your development name, your brand name, your company name, then that can be done, and there's no additional cost to you to do that work either. That QR code there takes you to the splash page for my ParkPay Go system. You can enter, I can give you the code, which is 1234. It goes through to a test account. There is a free period there, so you can just choose the free period for 30 minutes, and you can enter your registration, and you can see that your booking will be made. Just to finish off, I've got a couple of case studies that I just wanted to talk through with you. You know, it's very important to understand that when I get a site and when I survey a site, I don't just do it without knowing exactly what that site contains and what that consists of. So I do ask some key questions to make sure I have as much knowledge as is possible. This particular site I did go and visit as well, because I understand it was a bit complex. It was a new managing agent taking over the scheme, and they weren't too sure. They actually hadn't visited site. So everything I told them about the parking, aside from the number of units you can see there, was sort of led and fed by myself to make them aware of what was on site. They did provide me a development plan, but they didn't know how it was all laid out themselves. So with 145 units on this scheme, there were only 10 numbered parking spaces with 3 additional bays: a car club bay, an undesignated bay for some reason, don't ask me why, a Vista bay, private estate road. The bays are numbered, bays and numbers had faded over time. The problems. So they inherited a site where there was abuse of allocated parking spaces. As you can imagine, 145 units, only 10 properties had a numbered parking space. There's bound to be some abuse going on. Those monopolisation of the additional bays, the car club bay, the undesignated, and the Vista bay. Vehicles parking in restricted areas, on yellow lines, on pavements, you know, making very difficult to access the site. There was a current incumbent on site, but they just weren't patrolling. Some of their signage was really poor, damaged, facing the wrong way. They weren't communicating with my client, and there was access issues for the development. At the end of the roadway, the private road, there was a new development, and for some reason, the only access to that site is through that estate. Because of how and where people were parking and it wasn't controlled, that contractor was getting very, very concerned that they couldn't access their site. Not only that, but obviously with health and safety concerns with your emergency vehicle access. So what was the resolution? What have we put in place? So we've introduced our resident e-permit system for the 10 properties with the numbered spaces, the e-vouchers for all 145 properties. We've changed the use of the car club bay and the undesignated bay to maximise the Vista parking. What was found out is with the undesignated bay, no one had any rights to use that permanently. The car club was not in effect. So I suggested that we use those 2 bays to make 3 Vista bays to make it more desirable and fairer that these bays aren't monopolised and they could be used by all residents. There was clear communication sent to all residents via letter format, which was hand delivered. So not just relying on Royal Mail or registered recorded delivery, they were personally hand delivered. Brand new signage in all areas from enforcement compliance, self-enforcement option for the residents with bays. So once again, they get full choice and flexibility to have a warden patrol. They can have a self-enforcement option. So if they see a vehicle parked in their bay, they have that option as well. Circa 4 weeks. So from receiving the instruction and the side contracts, the scheme was set up and operational within 4 weeks. And I've agreed with my client, I'll get some regular reporting of patrol frequency and PCN stats. And additional services, because the line markings are a little bit faded, that option is fully available for them as well. And the result of which, residents can now park in their allocated bays. There's much less parking abuse. There's more interest in the use of the Vista parking via my e-voucher system, and the contractors can access the end of the estate to their development. The commercial element, just to show that I can cover all aspects, 112 Beddington Lane. It's a private estate with an access road and an estate road to commercial industrial units. There's a private part of the land that the client owned, needed to be cleared for development. The problems that vehicles were parking all over the roadways. It really was as simple as that, from neighbouring businesses as well as the tenants themselves. There was a caravan, dilapidated caravan, and potential vehicle abandonment problem. And HGVs, it's a skip company at the end, one of the largest in London. Their lorries were parking on the roadways, which are limiting access for other vehicles and the tenants. So I provided a full management and parking service on both the estate and access roads. the marked bays were excluded. So once again, if I was free and I needed to maximise revenues from enforcement only, I would suggest a system to implement in the bays to make sure I can control them, to make sure I've got an opportunity to enforce with them. Well, if the client doesn't want those included on their request, I didn't hesitate to say that's absolutely fine. So obviously they take the risk and they understand that they could be misused. But once again, going back to that flexibility, that convenience, and make sure we're sustainable, is that if they wanted them included latterly in a few months' time because of abuse, we can introduce a system appropriate at that time. So there's no parking on the estate roadways, paved or landscaped areas. Signage was all installed and enforcement action taken. And I've provided the first monthly client report on the number of patrols that were made, when they were made, and the PCN stats for that period as well. The result, the caravan was removed from site within days of that management system coming into place. Unauthorised parking is reduced significantly. They can all park now in marked bays as opposed to where they were parking on the estate roads before. And the client's contractor has been able to clear the land for development purposes. So they're very pleased with the interim. Obviously, it will stand the test of time, but very pleased with the quick action that was taken and the result thus far. In closing, just a little bit about the private parking code of practice. Once again, I don't need to now with my business be massively au fait with this in regards to legislation being an approved operator, simply because I'm not an enforcement operator. However, just for your knowledge, there is a government private parking single code of practice. The consultation has yet been delayed and there'll be no action taken before the general election on the 4th of July. Bearing in mind the new single code of practice was first introduced in February 2022, but we are dealing with government here. Nothing changes in the immediate future for you. Just some general tips for you in regards to avoiding parking charges. I'll let you read those off there. These are just general good advice in general in respect of making sure that your residents, your customers are aware of just simple things they can do to make sure that they can park effectively, conveniently, and make sure that they ultimately avoid being issued with a parking charge. So thank you for your time. Really appreciate you listening in there and spending 30-40 minutes with me today. Just so you know, ParkSimple, what do we provide? Expert parking advice, management, solutions, services, and facilitations. Thank you for listening.
Hello everyone, thank you, Robert. I know Rob's had a few issues with hearing my sound, so if he can't respond to me, that's why I just want to clear that up. We don't look like we've got any questions at the moment. If anyone has any questions, then please feel free to submit them now, or otherwise we will finish up there. I will just give you a moment. No, nothing coming in, I don't think. Okay, we will finish up there then. Thank you very much for joining us today. If you would like to join any of our other webinars, then please feel free to have a look on the News on the Block website. You'll be able to see what else we have coming up over the next few weeks and register there. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to Rob. I know that you can't hear me, but thank you for joining us and presenting the webinar today, and we will see you on the next one. Thank you.